Shana Tova, Good Yontif. A man comes to meet with his rabbi. Rabbi, I'm considering a divorce and I want your opinion. In the next hour, he complains about all the wrongs that his wife has caused him. The rabbi turns to him, gives him a hug, and says, "After listening, I agree with you." The next day, the wife shows up. She meets with the rabbi, explains why she wants a divorce, gives her list of reasons, the many offenses her husband has committed, making sure to mention the many times that he drove the wrong direction, that he drove her nuts, that he consistently leaves the toilet seat up. After an hour discussing her list, the rabbi turned to the woman and says, "I agree with you. You should get a divorce." That night, the rabbi gets a call on his cell phone. It's the child of the couple. "Rabbi, my father came to you and you said you agree with him that my mother is wrong. Then my mother came to you. You told her my father was wrong. Rabbi, I want to know who's wrong, my mom or my dad, but most importantly, Rabbi, I want you to know I'm really angry with you." The rabbi listened, talked to the child, and then said, "I agree with you. And you should start putting the seat down when you use your parents' bathroom." It's not hard for any of us to understand how a child can look at two people with simple eyes. One must be wrong, one must be right. One is the winner, one the loser. One good, the other bad. And yet we all know that every relationship that dissolves, it's never because of one person or one moment or one issue. It's often said that if you think relationships are simple, you're not in one. And they aren't. Yet, we love to make what divides us seem so simple. We embrace the binary with childlike eyes. We are easily convinced into believing that what divorces us from a cause, from a political party, from a movement, from a congregation, from a group of friends, and yes, even a family member, can be just one single factor. We say things like, if only this thing didn't happen, we would have been fine. If only they hadn't done that, it would have worked. And of course, the opposite is true as well. We are so easily convinced that what will bring us together is complicated, that it's hard to bring people into a room who disagree, even when it's in their best shared interest. We often say it's just too hard, too complicated. As you may know, Temple Israel and Bethel recently brought our religious schools together. This has been an effort tried many times over the last 30 years. If we were to take a poll, I bet most of you have been on a committee at some point that was discussing how we could bring our religious schools together. There have been many discussions in my 10 years here about making this happen. A few years ago, we were very close, but every time the list of complications reared its head. What about kashrut? What about the location? What about money? How will we fund it? What about the name of the school? What about the prayers we say differently? That was just the first 30 seconds. Whether it's two religious schools, whether it's two political parties, whether it's two spouses, we are very good at complicating what brings us together, and we are very good at making what divides us seem so simple. Tonight, in Jewish tradition, we flip that script. Kol Nidre is the night when Jews who were in hiding, sometimes out of fear of persecution, sometimes out of apathy, came to the synagogue anyway. It didn't matter if you were Ashkenazi or Sephardi, intermarried or Orthodox, whether you celebrated Christmas or Hanukkah. Tonight, on Kol Nidre, unity, coming together, became simple. You just show up. And on Kol Nidre, as we've already heard in our words, we complicate what divides us. In most traditions, repentance is expressed privately and personally. Blame is something between the individual and God. When confessions are made, they're often behind closed doors, if they are shared aloud at all. Not tonight, not tomorrow. Here we are, all together. We say, for sins between us and God, Yom Kippur atones, but for sins between people, Yom Kippur does not atone. We've always believed that prayer is not enough to mend relationships between people. Judaism complicates the mistakes we have made by asking us to share them at the same time, publicly, communally, and while we suffer together on an empty stomach. So that we realize that even in the ways we've hurt each other, even in the mistakes we have made, we are deeply connected. So some of you have asked why this set of old books is on the bima tonight. I want to do a little show and tell. Hopefully you can see the books by the Israeli flag. Many of you may not have studied the Talmud, but I imagine a lot of you remember a famous line from Crocodile Dundee. We won't poll to see which is which among you. In the movie, a mugger pulls a small switchblade on Mick Dundee. He's in New York, out of place. Mick grins at him, and he takes out a huge Bowie knife, and he says, "That's not a knife. This is a knife." Well, we don't deal in knives in our tradition. We deal in books, and in lots and lots and lots of words. The Talmud was written by the rabbis 1,500 years ago. It continues to serve as the foundation for the Judaism we practice today. You can see that that's what we call a book. It's a big, big book. And it's not just one book, even though that's what we call it. It has 37 tractates covering thousands of pages. We're supposed to study one page a day, which, if you were to follow that tradition, would take you 7.5 years. This is all by way of saying that if someone were to ask, are the Jewish people good at complicating things? We don't need to say anything. Like Crocodile Dundee, we just point to our bookshelf. That's what we call a book. And in that book, it prides itself on asking simple questions, like when one should say the Shema every day, or what if your goat jumps off your roof and breaks something that's your neighbor's? I know many of you have been worrying about that. But if you were to ask, which I know is weighing on you in this moment, what's the longest response from the rabbis in that very long book? What's the question they spend the most words on? I'm glad you asked. It's the answer to the question, what do we do when neighbors want to put a wall separating themselves? For dozens of pages, the rabbis complicate the question. Well, how high should the wall be? Well, what material should it be made of? Well, should it have windows? Who's supposed to pay for maintaining the wall? When there's a gate, which side of the fence should the lock go on? And who keeps the key? Page after page after page, they discuss it enough to make you wonder if they went on in order to help the neighbors say, maybe we shouldn't build a fence. Maybe it's just too complicated. And yet, in our world, boy, do we make it simple. I read the work of Peter Coleman. He's the director of the Difficult Conversation Lab. I think that's a great name for a synagogue, by the way. We should, too many Temple Israels, we should be just Temple Difficult Conversation. He writes the following. We've done a good job of replacing complexity with certainty. When you believe without a doubt, he writes, that they are all idiots, that they are all misinformed, that they are trying to harm our country, and that you are the victim of their insanity, that's when we know we have a problem. And so his answer: start complicating how you think. Complicate how you feel. Complicate how you behave towards one another. Complicate the media you listen to, and complicate the places you travel. Start to exchange certainty for complexity. That's what we're good at. We don't need walls between us. We need walls around us. Or as one colleague put it, we have to force ourselves to stay in the room when things get complicated. When your politics are different, raise the question and stay in the room. When your view of the world is different, when the way you raise your kids is different, when the news you watch is different, don't take the simple way out. Don't be certain. Don't say they are idiots. That's simple. Get in a room you can't leave and ask a hard question. Here's where I think I'm going to ask you to do something I imagine a rabbi hasn't asked you to do before. Play golf. Or, Samino, our beloved congregant, did and posted on social media. She and a friend decided to walk a half marathon together so they would have a lot of time together to talk. You know what happens when you're on the golf course or you're walking a half marathon for 13.1 miles and you ask a hard question? You're stuck in the room, on the course, on the street, together. You got to talk it out the whole time. Talk out questions that make you uncomfortable. A question that may have an answer you disagree with. And then for 17 holes after you ask that question, for 12 more miles, you got to figure out how to talk about it. That's what complicating division looks like. It means that we get in a room, we ask a hard question, and we lock the door. We make each other think. And we complicate it further when we surprise our opponents and ourselves by actually appreciating what they say. A teacher of mine, Alana Stein-Hain, calls it uncomfortable appreciation. She reminds us appreciation doesn't mean endorsement, but it's important. And she recalled that in 1981, the Rebbe, the leader of the Hasidic movement, he was not a big fan of President Carter. They had disagreed on everything from Camp David Accords to prayer in school, vehemently. And he'd been very public about his disagreement with the president. But one day, the Rebbe published a letter sharing appreciation for the president and acknowledging the many lives that he saved and the wars that he prevented. Many of us probably remember the town hall in 2008 when an audience member began calling Barack Obama names. John McCain interrupted her. "No, ma'am, he is a decent person. He's a decent person I happen to disagree with, and a person that you do not have to be scared of as President of the United States." The Rebbe, John McCain, they complicated division. They made it hard to separate simply, hard to rock the other side, and they forced people to stay in the room. That's how we hold our community together. We make it hard to divide us, and then we do the work of healing as we remind each other what is so simple about coming together. Richard Beck is not Jewish. In fact, he teaches psychology at a Christian university and leads a Bible study every week at a local prison. A few years ago, Beck turned college graduation, though, into what I would call a pretty good Kol Nidre service. Here's how he opened his speech. "I'm here today not concerned with your best day. The good days will take care of themselves. What interests me now is your worst day. How are you going to face the worst day of your life? What will get you through your lowest point and darkest moment? The time when you experience heartbreak, failure, shame, and regret. Who will you be when you are holding the shattered pieces of a broken dream? How do you survive that day?" He admits the crowd wasn't excited to hear what he was saying. It's not what people expected, but it's exactly what this night is. Kol Nidre asks us, what will you do on your worst day? And it's the simplest question while being the most important. It is in our dire moments, moments of terrible diagnosis, of tragic loss, that the divisions held in a family for decades can be bridged in a simple moment. It is simple in those moments. Simple to put aside our differences, to ignore personality quirks that drive us nuts. In those low moments, we learn very quickly coming together is not hard at all. We just experienced this as a people. On October 6th, the Jewish community was more divided than it had been in 75-year history of Israel. Hundreds of thousands marched in the streets. Reservists in the IDF proclaimed that they would refuse to serve. On October 7th, not only did those reservists voluntarily go to service, people flew from all over the world. They left vacation. They left homes they had set up in other countries. At their own expense, they got on planes to land in the middle of a war zone. On October 6th, it seemed like division was so easy. On October 7th, it was coming together that was so obvious, and it only took a moment for it to happen. Yom Kippur is our practice run every year of what the worst day of life might be. It's a reminder that none of us are guaranteed years. A reminder that all of us have failed this year. A reminder that we are weaker than we think, more dependent on others than we want to be. That the world out there shows us everyone's best day. That's what's plastered on the news or on social media. That's what's celebrated at big graduation ceremonies. Judaism, on the other hand, gathers us all together today with a more serious and important question: who will get you through the hardest days of your life? I can't tell you what the answer is for each of us, but I know this: it's not complicated. Not by politics or opinions. It's simple. It's the people who will be there for you no matter what. So a child asks his rabbi, "How can you agree with both my parents as they are separating?" And the rabbi says, "Division is complicated. But if you think this is one of the worst days of your life, I can tell you exactly who is there for you. Both your parents. It's just that simple. God, we need more walls around us, not more walls between us. So help us complicate what divides us. Let that be a long discussion filled with questions, pages of books, and help us simplify what unites us. Let that be a simple answer. 1, 2 words. The names of people we love who love us. The name of a community we're a part of. Our congregation. May this day be a reminder that we are ready for our worst days because we know above all else that those names, those friends, our family, this congregation will be there to face that day with us. Gemar Chatima Tova.